Alright, in this lesson we'll explore the fillna method, which is used to fill the null values in a data frame with a specific value. So let's begin by re-executing our code to load our NBA CSV. And there we have our familiar NaN popping up in the salary column. So the fillna method can be called directly on a data frame, and in certain situations it will work, but in this case it won't be perfect, and I want to show you why. So I'm going to use my NBA data frame. I'm going to call the fillna method by writing .fillna, opening my parentheses, and the very first argument here is the value, so what I want to replace every missing value or every null value with. So if I do something like 0, and I execute this, you'll see that for something like the salary column, the NaN is going to be replaced with 0.0, which is good. It makes sense in the context of the salary column. But in something like the college column right here, which has strings, those missing college values have been replaced with zeros, which doesn't make any sense in the context of the college column. So fillna on a data frame works when you have, let's say, a consistent data set. Every column represents floating points, for example, or every column represents strings, and you want to replace the nulls with a consistent string. In a varied data set like this, where you have different data types, sometimes filling every null with the same value just doesn't accomplish what it's supposed to do, which is kind of grant a little bit of simplicity and understanding. So in situations like this, what I prefer to do is to call the fillna method on the series within our data frame rather than the data frame as a whole. So I can just collapse this by clicking the gray space right here, and of course this operation isn't permanent until we use the in-place parameter, which is available on the fillna method. It doesn't become permanent, so I still haven't modified my NBA data frame from its original look. So I'm going to begin by extracting the salary column first. And there we have a sample NaN value. And now I'm going to call the fillna method on my series instead of my data frame. And everything is basically going to be the same. I'm going to provide a argument for the value parameter, which is the very first one. I'm going to do 0. And then I'm going to change the value from the in-place parameter to be true instead of false. So in-place equals true. And what's great about this is even though I'm calling the fillna method on this series of salary, it's connected directly to the data frame. So if I preview the first 5 rows of my NBA data frame, you can see that that NaN and all other NaNs have been replaced by 0, with 0 in my original NBA data frame. And my other NaNs, which for example exist in the college column, have stayed there. So now I can continue this operation to replace them with adequate values. So for example, in the college series, I can extract that with my bracket syntax. I have a couple NaNs here. Let's say I want to fill that with a value of no college. That's a string, so it's much more consistent with what the other values in this series are. And I can preview this just by executing it. Nothing is going to change, but I can see no college has taken the place of the NaNs. And now, if I'm satisfied with the result, I can make it permanent by providing a true argument to the in-place parameter. There we go. And now if I take a look at the first 5 rows, you can see that the NaNs there have been replaced with no college. And I can continue this, for example, if we have another column of booleans or integers, I can maintain consistency with the data type, which is the most important thing whenever you're working with data optimization and data efficiency. So the fillna method can be called on either a data frame or a series. It depends on what kind of data you're working with and the structure of your data frame. If you have a consistent data type across the entire data frame and you're okay with replacing all nulls with a consistent value, by all means feel free to call the fillna method on the data frame as a whole. Otherwise, you can always extract a single series and call the fillna method on that. Remember to include the in-place parameter, set it equal to true in order to modify it, and even though it's being called on a series, by that I mean the fillna method is being called on a series, as long as you do in-place equals true, it will affect the values in the original data frame that series is being extracted from. So that's the fillna method.